Good evening.
Hello.
It was odd. I didn't have any ringing from Skype in my ear, so I wasn't sure if I had audio messed up or not.
Oh, interesting. I will warn you, at some point tonight I'm going to open up another can of La Croix, and I'll wait until you're talking, but I just wanted to give you a heads up so that it doesn't surprise you.
All right. So how are you?
I'm well, and how are you?
I'm good. I haven't had a chance to pull up the notes yet, other than briefly adding my input. So.
I'm still adding notes.
One of these days we'll actually use them as an outline and not just random placeholders for stuff.
So I have follow-up that this is not my follow-up episode. I'm working on my follow-up episode, but I have follow-up for today from last week about the 2 terabyte iPod Classic that I was talking about.
Please tell.
Yeah, so there's a 2 terabyte iPod Classic that has been finagled. There's a company that makes a I'll just call it a card, but it has the connector that is needed, like the same connector that the 1.8 inch hard drive that was used in the iPods, as well as the first generation MacBook Airs with the rotational drive. It's got that connector, and on the other side of the card, or on one side of the card, it has sockets for 4 micro SD cards. And so this guy, he's got a YouTube channel. He's an Australian man. The YouTube channel is DankPods, DankPods. He's kind of goofy, but he's endearing, and he's successfully put together a 2 terabyte iPod Classic with this piece of hardware, and he used 4 512 micro SD cards, so slightly above 2 terabytes, and then when it's formatted, it's below 2 terabytes, as you would expect with standard formatting. Didn't Mac OS sort of change that at some point in the OS?
Yeah, at some point there was a change from one calculation to another, and I don't remember the details, but I do remember the change.
Yeah, I want to say Snow Leopard.
That sounds right. It's definitely been a while.
So, and Snow Leopard was a little over 11 years ago when it was released, so it's, it's on up there. Anyway, he tried to do the same thing with 4 1 terabyte micro SDs, and he couldn't get it to work. It was kind of odd. Like he could get 2 1 terabyte micro SD cards to work, but he couldn't get 4. It was not possible. He ended up giving up on it after having bought, I think, 7 1 terabyte micro SD cards. So it's a fair amount of money spent on micro SD cards. The other interesting thing that was about it was that around 50,000 songs is kind of the limit of songs that you can put on an iPod Classic based on RAM limitations.
Interesting. I assume it has to read like a list of those files into memory, and that's the issue.
Yeah, it is. So he had, I think in the video where he successfully puts together the 2 terabyte iPod, he had something like 36,000 songs on the iPod, and then a bunch of movies, and he ended up putting the contents of his MacBook Pro on there, and he still had something like 800 gigabytes of free space on there.
It's relatively insane.
Yeah, it is. I used to joke in 2008 when I was working at an Apple store, I got one of the displays, the iPod displays. So it wasn't one with like there were some iPhone displays that had a 30-inch cinema display inside of them at a 90-degree angle. So it rotated so that it was the longest dimension was perpendicular to the floor. So it wasn't one of those, but it did have a fluorescent light behind it, and it would light up. And anyway, I used to joke about how it'd be fun to bring it in and be like, yeah, my 10 terabyte hard drive or my 10 terabyte iPod Nano isn't working. I need some help.
I had one piece of follow-up that I was going to go ahead and add as well. I mentioned that there was an app that would let you send letters to your representatives relatively easily.
Oh, yeah.
The app's name is KwikLetter, Kwik letter.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't actually look any closer at it, but if anybody is interested, it does exist, and it is out there to facilitate being able to send messages to your representation.
I actually would like to take a look at that I'm going to look at this after the show's over. That seems interesting.
I don't know all the details. I do know, of course, there's a cost involved because you're paying postage and printing the letter and that kind of thing. But it is designed to make it easier to do so. And I don't know if it's form letters only or if you can do custom content or what. That's the part I didn't look into.
It's interesting.
I think that's it for follow-up, right?
It is for now. I literally just finished watching the West Wing special as you sent me a message saying that you were going to be ready in about 10 minutes. And I really liked it.
They did a great job with it.
Oh, yeah, it was excellent. I would say Hartsfield Landing is one of my favorite episodes from the whole series. And I didn't realize that was the episode that was being reenacted. It's a perfect episode. But it's definitely one of my favorites, and I thought they did a wonderful job. I thought I really liked the opening, I thought the opening was good, but I love the narrating. I thought it was really great that they got Emily Proctor to narrate because she was in the show in a lot of the early episodes, and she was a lot of fun. In the show, and I thought it was great that they had her narrating.
She played Ainsley, correct?
Yes, yeah, she's Ainsley Hayes, and I know that there's probably at least an entire season, probably 2 seasons where she doesn't appear, and then I want to say somewhere in the fifth season she shows up, and she's like, yeah, been working in the basement this whole time, kind of thing.
We're in season 4. I don't remember exactly which episode, but I did notice that they hadn't shown her on screen in a while.
Yeah, she was used a lot to, I guess, as a form of just to create tension with Sam Seaborn.
I remember making notes on a couple of different pieces, the guest speakers, when we watched it. I enjoyed seeing Samuel L. Jackson, but the entire time I really wanted him to just say, "Go vote, motherfucker."
Yes, I know. It's like every time I see him do something serious like this, and there's been a number of things where I've seen him talk about something like this that's important to him, and it's just like, man, I can feel the F-bombs just being bottled up inside of him, I would love to hear him practicing it because I don't know. He's a professional. He probably practices it perfectly the right way, but I would love to hear a version of it where he ad-libs quite a bit.
I do wonder a lot if the repetitive use of the F-bombs is more a character persona or if that's how he speaks in general and it comes through in those particular roles.
I think it's certainly blurred. I think that, so I had let's see, in 2012, Apple sent, I think it was mostly just family members out to various parts of the country based on where your location was to do some training. And the guy that was training my group told a story about how he met Sam Jackson in the airport, and it was like he was expecting. He's like, "I'll say motherfucker for you, I'll do it, no problem." It was kind of a thing. So, he's certainly known for it. I know that when they originally recorded Snakes on a Plane, it had a PG-13 rating, and they're like, "Oh, we got to bring Sam back so that we can have him drop more F-bombs because that's what people wanted to see." I want to say that there was like in a test audience where their criticism was that they wanted to see Samuel L. Jackson say the F word. So I feel like at this point there's definitely a blur between he speaks that way because he speaks that way, and he's certainly been known to say that and speak a certain way and say certain words because of his career. But I want to say it was probably that way before, and he just brought it to the table with him.
Probably so. I mean, I would imagine when you have something that is that memorable that you try to kind of infuse it into whatever character parts you want to play as well.
And it could, I was just thinking it could be that it wasn't something he did in his personal life necessarily, but it was like, I'm going to bring this to the character. So it's like Will Smith, he says damn the same way in many things that he's played. His character says damn the Will Smith way in Independence Day, in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Those are the two I can think of off the top of my head, but I know I've seen it in multiple characters of his say it that way.
The Bad Boys franchise.
Sadly, I have not watched Bad Boys.
You're missing out on some good quality action films.
I know, and I have. At one point, it was a priority to watch it, but circumstance was such that I never did, and so I know it's out there. I know that I actually want to watch it, so I know that I know what I'm missing. I just haven't been able to see it. But I was going to say, that made me, what you were saying about Sam Jackson made me, I had the same thought about Marlee Matlin. She was in a scene, or it felt like a scene, because they had the same actor play. So she shared a scene with Bradley Whitford, but it was one of the segments in between about mail-in ballots, or more than just mail-in ballots, but voter fraud. And the actor that was her interpreter was on the side, and there's a point in that skit where she talks about playing the idiot, and it was just like, it was perfect banter between her character and Whitford's character that was seen throughout the whole run of the show, and it was nice to see them start out kind of like, oh, we're actors telling you that voter fraud is not a thing, and then realize, oh, this is a skit the whole time.
I enjoyed that with, and I don't remember the names of the actors, but the two that played, I'm drawing a blank, the president's daughter and his assistant.
Emily Moss and Dule Hill.
Yes.
Yeah.
I loved that skit because of the reference to they're supposedly the younger characters on the show, and so they're speaking to the younger crowd, even though there's, a decade plus removed from that age demographic.
Oh yeah. They are about our age now. I think Emily Moss is maybe a couple of years younger than me, but yeah, they're both in their late 30s.
The other skit that I just loved was when they brought Lin-Manuel Miranda on and had him do a reading.
Oh, that was excellent. That was that was so good. That was a lot of fun. That was great.
Have you, I know I've asked this before, but I haven't circled back to it. Have you watched Hamilton yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
We'll add that to the list at some point of something to discuss.
Yeah. Yeah. That was really well. That was done really well.
And I don't remember the actress's name that plays Donna, but
Janelle Maloney.
Okay. So for those who may not have seen it, she was basically stating that the West Wing did more for interest in political discourse than Hamilton could have, and they had a running joke about it not being a competition that was nicely portrayed throughout the skit.
Yes, yeah. I would say I went to the same university as Janelle Maloney a lot later, quite a few years after her, but yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Wesley Snipes went there as well as Ving Rhames.
And that alone is a pretty decent set of relationships to the school.
Yeah, yeah.
So the reason I was a few minutes later setting up is we decided to watch another episode of Ted Lasso. And
good show, right?
It didn't wrap up until a few minutes afterwards. Oh, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. We just finished episode 4 tonight.
Okay. I had one more thing to say about the West Wing special, and that was on the stage. They had some shots that were like some wide shots from probably a balcony seat or a balcony area, and you could see the way it was lit. Where the hallway was represented by circle lights, and just like in the show, I don't know if you've noticed in the show that when they're walking through a lot of hallways, the hallways might look a little bit darker than you would expect, and the floor has a circle pattern from the light. And I thought it was really cool that they, even on a relatively bare stage, they represented the hallway with those circle lights.
Oh, they did a great job in general just with set design. I mean, even though you could tell it was a stage, you felt like you were watching a reenactment of the episode to an extent.
It was totally immersive.
Yeah. And
then the other thing, I thought the transition at the very end to the actual episode of the show was it was flawless, and it was a perfect way to end that special. I thought it was excellent. Really appreciate the details.
I actually enjoyed the guy that subbed in for Leo's role, and I don't. Again, I'm horrible with actors' names, so I don't remember his name. But I thought he did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, I know I've seen him in some shows or movies, but I haven't been able to place him yet. So,
I know I've seen him in a number of things. Like he was very familiar to me by sight, just not by name.
I definitely recognize his voice. He's a distinct voice, but I can't place where I've seen him. So Ted Lasso, what are your thoughts on Ted Lasso?
Full disclosure, I actually did not know anything about the character or anything else, or where it came from, or the origins of the joke, or wherever the idea sprung from. The entire reason we decided to look at it was I watched the trailer and thought, hey, that looks like it could be pretty enjoyable. And I had heard it mentioned on a couple of podcasts.
Yeah, that's how I got into it. And I saw the trailer, and then I heard on the podcast it's not as goofy as the trailer makes it out to be. And the talk show is, I think, where I've heard it several times. Or it was mentioned several times on the show, and it was all, just praising the show, and it turns out it's a fantastic show. It's so much fun, and it was really. I actually got really even more excited when I saw that it was created by Bill Lawrence. But before watching the show and seeing the little blip saying this was based on an NBC sports character, I had no idea that's where it came from.
Yeah, I know the talk show is where I first heard of it, and the talk show being Gruber's podcast for Daring Fireball, just in case someone is confusing that with a late night show of any type.
Good call out.
Yeah. The other thing that I saw that was interesting that makes me think Apple TV may be really kind of coming into its own. I know that Ted Lasso has been looked at as kind of a sleeper hit and a way to really grab attention. But I saw a headline today that Jon Stewart signed an exclusive with Apple TV Plus.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, it immediately made me think to an episode or two back where I was talking about I really missed his commentary, and I'm just hoping that it's a similar format, at least something that lets him kind of be himself, similar to The Daily Show.
Yeah, that's exciting. I feel like one of the best election nights was watching him and Colbert discuss the I think it was Obama's first election and his winning of his first election. I thought that was a really fun night, and I remember like at some point when they called Obama being president, they both broke character and were really happy, and that was cool. But I'd love to see Jon Stewart behind the desk again. Yeah,
I certainly would too. And I don't care if it has none of the ancillary supporting cast or characters that a normal show would have. I just enjoyed listening to his commentary, just his I guess I won't say unfiltered because I'm sure it's filtered in some capacity, but his unbridled commentary. How far have you made it through Ted Lasso?
I finished it.
Yeah, so we've got a ways to go.
It's it's actually a quick watch. It's 10 half-hour episodes, so it doesn't take too long to get through it. So, I feel like it was a breeze to watch. It's very easy. Everything is very uplifting, and I don't know. It just made me smile. It's just like that's happy, and it's like a great time to. 2020 is the year to have something happy like this. So, I don't. So I mentioned Bill Lawrence. I mentioned Bill Lawrence, and his breakout show was Scrubs. It was a show he created based on a friend of his that he was in school with, and I don't know, when I see certain creators' name on a work, I'm like, oh, I know that I'm gonna like this. So I was really excited, and it was nice to see something new by him that was very different from Scrubs. But like I see a name like that, and I feel like it's a seal of approval. And I thought it was cool that the second episode of Ted Lasso was directed by Zach Braff, who was the main character from Scrubs. So that was a lot of fun to see that. I think he's been directing more. So
yeah, I didn't pay attention to the credits, so I wasn't entirely sure where the Zach Braff reference was coming in the notes. But that doesn't surprise me. I know. At some point or another, I listened to an episode of Armchair Expert. I don't know if it's a podcast you're familiar with.
Heard of it.
But Dax Shepard is one of the hosts, and he had Zach Braff on the show, and they were talking about a lot of current directorial work that Braff was doing.
Yeah, he. I think after Scrubs, he stepped out from behind the camera and was directing. Because he directed a movie... Garden State. He directed that in mid 2000s. It was like only a few years after Scrubs had started, and before Scrubs, he was a nobody. Like he went from being a waiter at a French Vietnamese restaurant to the star of the 2001 hit show on NBC, and because it was a big show at the time, and so his life got turned upside down pretty quickly. So. And then after Scrubs, he's been in a few things here and there, nothing major that I can recall, but I think he's been focusing on directing, which is, I thought Garden State was good. I remember really enjoying Garden State, so.
I actually haven't watched it.
I don't know, I watched it around the time that it came out. I don't know how well it would hold up, but I remember it being good. It's definitely It definitely feels like a mid-2000s independent film. That has a certain, 80s movies have a certain feeling, 90s movies have a certain feeling. Independent films from the mid-2000s have a feeling or have a feel to it, and that definitely is one of them. I was going to say the other name that I see as oh, I know this is going to be quality is Aaron Sorkin. I love Aaron Sorkin stuff, so... There hasn't been something that he's done that I've seen that I didn't like.
I actually haven't finished The Newsroom either, but I enjoyed it thoroughly, what I watched of it, which was probably, I think I finished the first season, started the second, and then we decided we would pause and go back and start watching The West Wing since we hadn't watched it, and then proceed from there forward.
I think The West Wing is by far his best show. I really like The Newsroom, but the whole time I'm watching The Newsroom, I'm like, oh my God, you cannot have conversations like this at work. HR will kill you. There's just a lot of HR inappropriate conversations and actions that happen at work, and I let it go because the rest of the show's good, but I notice it. The first show I watched of his was Sports Night. I was like on a couple seasons in the late 90s, and I happened to catch it in syndication. I'd watch it after I'd get home from school. College. I was in college, and so like I'd get home at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I don't know, at some point like Sports Night was on in like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I really liked it. So, one of my favorite movies is an Aaron Sorkin movie, A Few Good Men, and Molly's Game is his most recent movie that he wrote and directed. It was, I think, his directorial debut, and it's also a really good movie.
I, for some reason or another, did not realize that A Few Good Men was one of his movies.
Yeah, he initially wrote it as a play based on true events. I assume that, it was at some point his sister was telling him about it, because Demi Moore's character in that movie is based on events that happened to his sister. She was a lawyer in the JAG, and she tried this case.
Interesting. I guess it explains why I enjoy the character development there so much as well.
Oh yeah, that's a great movie. That one definitely holds up really well.
It's one I'll still, to this day, just randomly decide to let play in the background.
Absolutely. Same. Becca had not seen it before, and I was like, oh, we got to watch this movie. She's like, you always watch movies that are old. And I was like, I know, but this one's really good. You're going to like it. And she did. So
it was the one movie that made me consider actually a career in law. And then I realized it was a movie again.
Yeah. I thought a career at one point in my life, maybe even today, a career in law sounds really cool, but like I wouldn't ever want to be like a trial attorney. I think, I don't know, I think research law, researching various things in law would be interesting, but it's always glamorized by Hollywood. Even when it's like lawyers are the worst, form of life, it's still glamorized.
I mean, pretty much everything that you watch on the screen that gets you interested in a profession is only the more exciting aspects of it.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. Because who wants to see the terrible stuff? No, we don't pay to see the terrible stuff.
Well, maybe if you pay to see a disaster movie.
No, I think they're glamorizing, FEMA in those movies.
Well, and I guess you could also take the other approach that they're glorifying the disaster itself when the reality is typically a bit more mundane than what the screen portrays.
Oh, definitely.
Imagine if 2020 was a movie.
It'd still be pretty boring. Oh, wait, not a documentary, a movie. It would be pretty fucking awful.
And it'd probably be on par with something like Sharknado.
Oh my God.
Which I have not seen. The premise alone I find ridiculous.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen it either, and I think there's a sequel to it. But there's a nuclear tornado movie, and I was like flipping through channels once, and I came across. Well, I saw the actor Mark Paul Gosselaar, and so I stopped, of course, and it was this awful movie about I think it was like a nuclear tornado. I don't remember the name of the movie, but something. And which actually makes me reminds me of a movie a friend of mine brought to my attention. There's a Lifetime movie that stars Will Ferrell and Kristen Wiig, and they're not playing comedic roles.
Well, if it's a Lifetime movie, I assume it's the same general script and format that they use for everything.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's like there's a married couple. They always only have one child. The babysitter or nanny or whoever is now taking care of that child for them tries to seduce the husband and kill the wife or get rid of the wife. I don't know. That is like all of the Lifetime movies. You don't have to, you've seen one, you've seen them all. And so one day I went and I read the plot to that movie, and it's exactly that.
Yeah, there's definitely a reason Lifetime is not a channel that I care about.
Yeah. So I would be interested in seeing this one with Will Ferrell and Kristen Wiig, because I think the idea was that I think the idea for them was it would be funny if we try to play the roles in a Lifetime movie seriously. Us as comedic actors, that would be funny. And I think it would be funny. I'm certainly intrigued.
And I'm sure it's not what the producers at Lifetime would be going for.
Yeah. But, I mean, when you've got these two people saying, I'll be in a Lifetime movie, you say yes. So, I wanted to ask you, I'm pretty sure it's pretty early on in the series, but did you happen to catch the Harry Redknapp joke in Ted Lasso?
I am unfamiliar with the reference.
Okay. Harry Redknapp was I don't want to say mediocre. I don't think that's the right word. But he was a manager of many Premier League teams that were often on the second half of the table. And he would bounce around between teams because either he wasn't given enough money to do anything, or he wasn't good enough to do anything with whatever team he was. And if he had a team that was relegated, or he'd probably get sacked, and he'd manage a team that was in the relegation zone and bring them into the Premier League. And so he just sort of bounced around teams as well as in the Premier League like that. And at some point, it might have even been in the first episode, I think it was the communication director for the team in Ted Lasso was talking about how Harry Redknapp was saying that he was available for the position at the club there. And I can't even remember what the fictional town, Richmond.
Yeah, so, AFC Richmond.
Yeah, so I just happened to notice they mentioned Harry Redknapp, and it was very tongue in cheek, and I thought it was funny. So
yeah, and didn't know who. I mean, I had heard the name, but I didn't really know the history or who he was. So
when I started watching the EPL, he was managing Portsmouth. Yeah, and that was like 2005 or so. But I think he's since retired.
Yeah, it's certainly not anyone that I've heard their name mentioned in the current, current being past 3 to 5 seasons of the Premier League, managing any team.
Yeah, I think he retired around 2017, maybe 2018. So it's been a few years. So changing topics in a big way, you've got your iPhone 12 Pro. You've had it for a week.
More like 4 days, but, closer to a week than not a week.
Okay. Well, what are your thoughts?
I have been waiting for flat sides ever since the 5. I know plenty of commentary has talked about it not necessarily being as comfortable or whatever, and all of them are wrong. It just feels great again in hand, which is something that I've missed. So I love the flat sides. I would have purchased it if there had been absolutely no change from the 11 Pro to the 12 Pro other than the form factor. So it should come as no surprise that I 100% am on board with the flat sides all the way around. But that aside, I was very happy when it came in and I saw the kind of subdued color of the Pacific Blue. I was really unsure what I would think of it in person. You know, the product photos are always difficult to kind of tell.
Yeah.
And it's a phenomenal color. It is subdued enough that if it's darker in the room or, you know, outside, it has that kind of black look, but it is definitely a deep blue color, and obviously so in any amount of light. So physical aesthetics, it's great. I absolutely love everything about it. Getting to some of the just key takeaways that are interesting, I've noticed that using the normal camera, so the one they refer to as the wide, I think, the 1X, just stock normal camera, autofocus is significantly faster. There's a huge difference between the 11 Pro and the 12 Pro.
That's cool.
And it doesn't seem to matter what type of lighting conditions. It's just fast.
It shouldn't.
Yeah. And I have not played around with the other two lenses to see if they benefit from the same working in concert with the LiDAR sensor to create that kind of depth map and everything. I assume so, but I don't normally use the other two lenses that often anyway, except in fairly specific use cases. So 90% of the time, I'm just launching the camera app and using the normal lens, and it's great. Like it went outside with my son, and he was kicking the ball into we've got one of the little practice soccer nets out here. And it's the kind of thing that I never would have been able to quickly grab the camera, bring it up, and snap a shot and anything be in focus before. And
that's cool.
It did a good job. Now, I may not have captured the pose necessarily, but I could quickly grab it, launch the camera app, and take a snapshot, and there would be a frame that he was in focus that looked good. And that's just not something that I typically could do with the phone in the past. So that's been impressive. And then I'm assuming benefiting from the same kind of depth map structure, or I assume that it's related. Handheld night mode shots are very impressive. They're not necessarily great. So, you know, depending on how shaky your hand is or how much the subject moves, I mean, plenty of caveats to that. But what I've been able to create with the phone, just handheld, taking a picture and having it do the, 2 or 3 second exposure for the night mode thing, has still looked good. Granted, I have not imported those into the computer and blown them up a little bit and looked to see what kind of detail, because it's not the kind of thing that I would do with the phone pictures anyway. But it's been noticeably better than the results that I could achieve with the 11 Pro.
And the Pro format's coming later this year, is that correct?
Yeah, and I don't know what kind of time frame, but that's the piece that I'm really looking forward to, kind of unlocking some potential that is not currently there. But I also don't know how much of that, I don't know what the different layers are going to be or how it's going to work or anything else. It's an unknown until it's released. And I haven't gone digging and looking for any kind of information that's available because I doubt it's published at this point. Typically Apple's not going to give you those details until they release the feature, if then.
Yeah.
But I'm very much looking forward to seeing what it can do or what it gives me if I pull that picture into a third-party editor, not just photos.
I had thought about it, and I was like, I remember when it was announced, I thought, oh, that's a very interesting feature. But then when thinking about it and hearing all the things that it might change, I was like, it's probably a feature I won't use just because I'm a casual, I'm not a photographer. I just take pictures casually, but it might be fun to play around with. It'd be nice to actually be interested in hearing what sort of advantages you get from that, and if that fits into my life workflow sort of thing. So my iPhone 12. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say my iPhone 12 Pro is now in the United States.
Nice. I saw the last update you had in the notes with South Korea, which was interesting. I didn't see mine hit South Korea.
So I'm using another app to track it. You can put in the tracking code and it'll track it. And it started the day in China. I don't want to try to say the name of the city because I don't know Chinese pronunciations and I don't want to offend anyone with me trying to say Xingqiao. So it started there, and then it was in Incheon, South Korea, sometime today. And then it left South Korea and is now in Anchorage, Alaska. What's funny is that when it left South Korea, it left on October 28th, and it arrived in Anchorage on October 27th.
Yeah, it is always funny to see that, and you should see it sit in Anchorage for 2 or 3 days and then see it suddenly change.
Yeah. So should be sometime beginning of next week. I would love it if it got here this week, but it's slated to be here early next week.
The other thing that I've noticed, I know it kind of speculated that MagSafe might kind of pave the way for being able to use magnetic mounts in the cars that are decent without having to put, an adhesive metal piece or otherwise modify the phone. And granted, the only experience I have with MagSafe at this point is the little puck charger, but it definitely does not hold strong enough to hold the phone if it were jostled. Like you could pick up the puck and the phone will stay attached to it, but if you shake it, the phone is going to drop.
I've got to imagine that the puck is like going to have, it would be, I got to imagine that connection is going to be the least strong connection, like purposely weaker than the connection you'd have to a case or a wallet or a car mount, because you want it to detach pretty easily because you want to be able to pick up your phone and take it somewhere.
Yeah, I would think so. I know that the folks on ATP had a mention of a guideline that actually talked about the range of force and everything else, but none of them knew how to read it, so I don't have any takeaways from that either. But it'll be interesting to see what manifests over the next few months.
Yeah, when I was watching the Peak Design Kickstarter video, I thought that I thought, oh, this is cool. They got that out really fast, but then I realized, no, this is for the existing phones as well. So
yeah, what they did was they designed an ecosystem around their case and using magnets that just is fortuitously launching at the same time that Apple introduced MagSafe. And so following the campaign, they are actively retooling designs and testing and doing some things to see if they can leverage MagSafe natively appropriately in order to actually provide kind of the same experience. I do expect it to still require the case. I expect that there's going to be some combination of force that you can create with the whatever it is that's in the case and the magnets on the in the MagSafe ring that create that stable kind of platform for it to be used. But I'm excited nonetheless. I guess for those that aren't familiar, Peak Design launched a Kickstarter campaign. I think it's just called Mobile, but if you search for that or search for Peak Design, you'll find it pretty easily. And probably the things that I'm most excited about are the creator kit, which basically lets you take your iPhone, put it in their case, and attach it to a clip that is fairly securely locked into this, recessed kind of ring in the case, so that you have a quote-unquote hard lock, and you can use your phone as an action camera with any number of different types of compatible systems. So if you currently use, GoPro, or if you use their capture clip, or have anything that is Arca compatible, it'll connect straight to it. No additional accessories. And so that in and of itself is worth as far as I'm concerned, worth playing with, because it opens up the door to a bunch of different ways to capture video that I currently don't have without buying additional accessories. And I'm not the type of person that's going to leave it in their case other than when I'm using it with those accessories anyway.
Yeah. I found that to be really interesting as well. My use case for it would be, I think it would be something I can attach to the Ultrapod. It's a small tripod, lightweight, that I got for taking with me on hiking trips. Because sometimes couple of use cases. One, it's a tripod. It's very small. It can be attached to, or it can be set up and used to take pictures. I got it with the intention of taking time lapses at night. I think that would be a lot of fun, and because you certainly can't hold that camera for like long exposures. But it also can be has a Velcro loop, and it can be used to attach to many things. So you have the mount. You can fold the tripod legs in on themselves, and then use the Velcro loop to wrap it around. I've wrapped it around tree limbs. I've wrapped it around tent posts. I've wrapped it around the trekking pole that I use, so that I have like a monopod, or what are those things? Selfie sticks can be used like that, and like a selfie stick form when attached to the trekking pole. So the mount that I currently have for my phone is not good. It's a cheap mount. It's actually got a crack in it. It's not, at this point, it's not broken such that it has me concerned that my phone might come out of it, but it's only going to deteriorate. And I think the way they have their mounts would work with this tripod. So I'm interested.
Yeah, the other accessory that I'm interested in is their little mobile tripod that uses the same connecting mechanism that they built into the case. Whether or not I use it very often, I don't know, because I have their full-size travel tripod that has a phone mount anyway. But for those times where I'm really concerned about what I'm carrying as far as weight and what I'm packing and etc., it's nice just to have this little credit card sized, fold out tripod that could be accessible if it were needed to be used in a pinch.
It's totally cool. I thought I actually found that really interesting, even though it's probably the thing I need least.
Yeah, I think the tripod you were talking about, I think that's the one basically that I took on our European trip. It has a built-in, whatever it is, 3/8 inch, I think, or I don't even remember, whatever the standard little nut size on the bottom of a camera is.
Mm-hmm. It does. So that you can screw it into a standard full-frame camera.
Yeah, I used that to capture the time lapse in Ireland with the 7D.
Ah, nice. Do you have any other thoughts on the 12 Pro?
The flat sides are phenomenal. I don't know if I can emphasize that enough. I have missed those, and it is great to have them back. And then just the blue. I mean, I really was skeptical of whether I would like the blue or not. And as soon as I unboxed it, it's like, nope, this is perfect.
Yeah, I can remember like my first iPhone was the iPhone 3G, and I got white, and I was okay with that because the front was black, and so it never occurred to me like, oh yeah, totally white, because that was like at the end of the white phase that Apple went through. Because Apple went through this really lovely, sort of clean, crisp white, and I was a big fan of that. And I thought, like, I like to have white, I like a white iPod and a silver MacBook Pro, actually silver PowerBook. And then when the iPhone 4 came out, they didn't have white until months later, and so I went with black. And ever since then, I've gotten black phones, and I like the black for a long time. And I even think when Midnight Green was an offering, if I was going to have bought an 11 Pro, I still would have gotten black. But this blue looks really interesting.
Yeah, I guess the only other thing that I would mention is like visually, my brain recognizes that the display is larger, but it doesn't feel larger. There's kind of an odd, dissonance there that is difficult to wrap my head around. I keep being struck by how good the display is, even though it's not like the display on the 11 Pro was a slouch at all. But I see a difference, and I don't see it constantly. It's more one of those things that just kind of hits me occasionally, that, oh wow, the screen really does look good. And I don't know what to necessarily attribute that to. I don't know if it's just because I'm noticing the slightly more height or some aspect of color management or something. I do know that pixels per inch increased slightly, so there may be just a proper visual artifact that I'm not noticing that I've noticed before and didn't realize it. But that is another observation that I keep coming back to.
That sounds good. That's really cool.
And I know people have talked about the steel bands being fingerprint magnets on the blue. How many people are sitting looking at the sides of their phones?
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah. I mean, I've noticed it occasionally, and then I haven't noticed it since that first day.
Yeah, who cares? Have you noticed anything about the protection of the ceramic shield? Have you had it long enough to oh shit, have you had an oh shit moment and then found out there's no scratch or anything like that?
Not really. So the first day I didn't grab the phone and forgot that I had it plugged in, because for some reason or another I decided to plug in the lightning cable, and so it called a little bit and fell on the floor, but we're talking a very minimal height, not a height that I would have expected any previous phone to have a problem with anyway. So it wasn't an oh shit moment. It was just all right, well, I've dropped it, let me grab it, and I didn't see anything. But I wouldn't have expected to see anything on any of the previous phones either.
Gotcha. You want to tell me about your home network again?
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I was going to put this in or not, but I've spent enough time over the past couple of weeks redoing the network that it's all right, let's chat about it anyway.
Oh, I really feel that anyone who listens to this podcast, they need to know what kind of home network you have. They need to know that it's a robust home network and that it rivals, I would guess, any small business's network infrastructure. But
yeah.
Please share.
Based on personal experience with various small businesses, it blows them out of the water. So I adopted a full Ubiquiti Unify setup years ago and have seen it go through multiple iterations. The very first iteration was using one of their, it was actually a non-Unify line, using the Edge router, and then having that feed into two Ubiquiti PoE switches that fed into a couple of access points. And eventually I decided to replace the Edge router with one of the Unify security gateways. And of course I went with the larger offering at the time, which was the Pro model, and decided I would replace it a couple of months, maybe, not even then. Within the past 4 to 6 weeks anyway. Decided I would replace that with the Dream Machine Pro, predominantly because I wanted to have a more robust hardware platform and not rely as much on offloading a lot of the threat management and detection stuff to software, which horrifically reduced throughput. But the throughput was still more than sufficient for what I could get via Spectrum here at the house. So it's not like I was actually seeing a negative impact from it. It was more, I knew that limitation existed and I wanted to get rid of it. And at the same time, I decided it would be kind of nice to replace my aging Unify video setup, the NVR and everything, and just have it all on one device. So one of the advantages to going with the Dream Machine is that you have the Unify controller software, which is the application that actually you could download for free and run on a computer, or you can buy their Cloud Key, which is basically a little USB device that is a mini computer that runs the controller software. Or you can go with the Dream Machine, which is, a full-fledged system that has the same little compute module built into a rack mount frame, among other things. But basically the one device replaced my gateway and my Cloud Key and my NVR, and provided me with, I think it's 8 switch ports on the device. And that kind of fed into the other thing that I had been putting off for a while that I decided I would finally do, which is I would segment out the different aspects of my home network and create VLANs for things like my home automation devices, and have a separate one for work-related things now that we're working from home, and a separate one for my personal lab kind of play area, et cetera, et cetera. And so what I've ended up with is 8 VLANs in a home network, which is ridiculous overkill, but it's nice to have it all segmented out in a way that makes sense to me. And that feeds into a 24-port distribution switch, also Unify, which has uplinks from 2 different 8-port PoE switches. And I originally had 2 Unify wireless access points. I have added a third one to this mix. One of them is the typical, ceiling or wall mount disc that anybody familiar with the Unify gear is familiar with. 2 of them are their in-wall models, which are designed to go in a gang box, like an electrical box, and they provide you with a wireless access point that's PoE powered, but also provide you with a data port and a PoE port on the device, so I could expand a little bit easier from those if I wanted to without having to run additional cable. And on top of that, I have their Amplify router and 2 mesh points that is now on its own dedicated VLAN that covers the house strictly for IoT/automation items.
Interesting. I did not know that there was a device that you described with the wall mount. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, they've updated the original model that I have, or that I had, and so I have one of the older model, which is the 2 ports. One provides data and one provides PoE plus data. The new one that I ordered has 4 ports on it. I don't remember the breakdown. I don't remember if it's like 3 ports data and 1 port data plus PoE, or if 2 of them might be capable of PoE. I didn't care. For my use case, it was just more ports, and I'm not actually using any of them anyway. So sure, why not?
That's really cool.
But it is drastic overkill for a home network for sure. I can tell you, though, that I have no issues whatsoever with wireless coverage in this house or around it.
It'd be funny if it's one of those things where it's like there's all this time and money spent, and then it's like it's not as good as like the I feel like that's a trope in TV shows where like the dad puts all this time and money into a thing, and it's supposed to be the best. But it turns out it's probably not the best because the dad's not good at it, and this is not the case with you, but you've done quite a bit of networking, but it'd be funny. It reminds me of that trope.
Yeah, I did have a couple of issues. Apparently, and I didn't know this going into it, though it makes sense, but HomeKit and VLANs don't mix very well. And so I had to do a little tweaking of setup and a couple of firewall rules to make sure they talked appropriately, and all of that's now squared away and no issue at all. But apparently HomeKit compatible devices assume they're on the same native network as everything that controls them, and that is not the case here.
So one of the things that I find really interesting about Unify is that they make skins for their access point.
And they make them for the cameras too.
I didn't know that they made them for the cameras, but I thought that was really interesting. I get why you would have that. It's not entirely just because, it's cute, but it's like, different companies have different aesthetics in it. They really fit like an aesthetic you would see in a company. And I think it's really interesting that they even have like the camo. That's an aesthetic that they actually really need to have. So anyway, do you have any skins?
No, everything that I've got is native, either white or silver, depending on which product and line it's from. When I decided to do this, I did buy a bunch of their patch cables in different lengths, mostly to clean up the patch management in the cabinet that I've got, because I don't have a specific, patch management insert or patch panel in there. But also because the way their patch cables are made, there's kind of a metal piece right at the tip that you can bend if you want. And so you've got a relatively thin wire for the rest of the cable, the rest of the length of the cable. But the metal piece, if you need to bend it in a certain way to make it either look better or to get it out of the way, like it's actually designed to be bent to facilitate cable routing appropriately.
That's cool. And those are the blue cables that you have?
Yeah, well, in the pictures that you saw, they're the blue ones. I have a handful of longer black ones for devices that go outside of that cabinet, just because black blends better in the environment.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like the picture you sent to me with the blue cables, I feel like it could qualify with a before picture for some cable porn.
Oh, it's definitely close. I took the time to kind of crisscross them in a way that looked decent. Mm-hmm. Not that I was necessarily thinking I was going to be looking at it all the time, but it was one of those things that I knew, not having a patch panel and not having just straight, from here to here connections, and they were going to have to kind of go more or less all over the place, even though they really don't go that strangely. But it was one of those things that I knew that because of the layout, I wanted to at least give it something that would make it look better. And so the crisscrossing helps hide a couple of the cables that had to be run differently that go in between the two devices. And so it definitely looks a lot better than it used to. No more Velcro or zip ties. So
that's cool. I didn't realize, from the picture, I couldn't tell that there was something special about the cables for cable management. That's really cool.
Well, it's because I don't actually have them bent on the front. I did use that for a couple of the cables that I had to run in the cabinet itself back behind the devices. Mm-hmm. Because of the way that I've got a couple of things set up, being able to plug them into the two Synology devices that I've got, I needed to bend them at a little bit of an angle so that the cable would come down and comfortably, plug in, and it helped that they were designed for that. And so there's less of a protrusion than the regular network cables I was using previously.
Cool. How many, the 8-bay Synology, how many patch cables do you have coming out of that?
4.
You have all 4 used. Excellent.
Yes, and it's all bonded as one interface.
That's awesome.
And the 4-bay Synology has 2 interfaces, and those are done the same way. They're both bonded as a single interface.
Nice. I've gotten to play around with some of the 8-bay Synology drives, and the most I was able to bond was 2. I think they come with 2 cables, so I bonded 2 interfaces together. But I'll say nothing sounds as cool as the crunch of 8 brand new hard drives starting up and being formatted for the first time. That was a good sound.
Yeah, it's gotten to the point that I don't hear them running for the most part, because I decided in that 8-bay you can buy a couple of SSD cache cards for read-write.
Oh, cool.
And so I have 2 of those in there, one for read, one for write, and they're both 512 gig SSDs.
That's cool.
And so I just don't hear it really doing much 90% of the time.
The ones that I had set up for clients were in closets, and so it didn't matter. And so I remember I think the first one I set up, it had 8 4-terabyte drives, and so it just, I don't know, I just remember very satisfying sound from starting it up and formatting it for the first time.
Yeah, I need to finally replace. I have 6 4-terabyte drives and 2 3-terabyte drives, and I need to finally replace the 2 3s. It just hasn't been a priority because I'm only at 50-ish% capacity.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And that's with 2 drive failure recovery.
Oh, wow. Wow. So, you've got almost as much storage as that iPod.
Yeah. I think last time I looked, I think it was 8 terabytes usable, give or take.
Wow. That's a lot.
No, it had to be more than that. It had to be closer to 12. 8 must be... Oh, I remember what it was. So when I first set up the 8 terabyte, I made a mistake of putting the drives in an odd order, and I was using a mix of a couple of 4-terabyte drives and single terabyte drives.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I replaced a couple, it didn't adjust appropriately until I replaced an additional 2 more or something like that. So when I first set it up, I ended up with 8 usable terabytes. And then as I've replaced drives over time, I'm up to over 12. I don't remember the specific number. I'll go take a look at some point. I'll put that as follow-up.
Very cool. I think I was aware of you updating your network before you told me that you were updating your network. I went to play a video on Plex, and Plex was not accessible. So
probably a good indicator. I went for a good week and a half, 2 weeks before I realized I hadn't set up the proper rules and everything for it to be accessible remotely again, because I just haven't left the house.
Well, I was going to say, I remember looking at it and I was like, oh, okay. And then you were like, oh, I'm working on you told me you were working on your network, and I was like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. And then I think I looked again and I was like, oh, it's still down. No worries. But as of tonight, it's up.
Yeah, I think it was a week before last when I remembered I hadn't set up the remote access rules and finally took the time to do so. But it was just because, again, I haven't left the house and tried to access Plex. That's always the reminder that, oh yeah, you got to set this stuff up again.
Right.
And of course, when I access it, typically I have a VPN set up, so I just connect to the VPN, and then it doesn't matter. I'm not actually accessing it remotely anyway, in the same fashion.
Right. So I got to ask you about this last topic, because you don't have enough side projects?
Yeah, this seems to be the year where I just keep biting off more and more different things to try. So I started playing with iOS application development and made some fairly significant progress to the point where I think I'm not going to just toss it aside again right away. I'm going to continue to kind of evolve it and see if I can figure out the couple of headaches that I've got.
Oh.
So backstory here is there's one particular app that annoys me almost all the time. And it doesn't cost me anything because I don't use the features that cost. So it bombards me with requests to subscribe and, stuff that I just don't care about. And I finally have gotten around to deciding to write what I would want out of a replacement for that. And I took a different approach. One of the things that has always stopped me in the past is I, for some reason or another, tried to make some of the logic work first, and then would get fed up with something and not really know how to translate it elsewhere, and blah, blah, blah. This has been a many years. I've started and kind of looked at things and learned some things and then just put it aside because it wasn't as straightforward as I thought it should be. Fast forward to the past, few weeks, probably not quite that long, but, recent developments. I decided I would prototype what I would expect the UI to look like first, and I would do it with nothing but Swift and Swift UI. And if I couldn't make it work, that's fine, I would shove it aside again. but I got surprisingly far. And so now I'm actually exploring without any, understanding of how the frameworks work as far as iOS development goes. I'm now exploring reading and writing to external files within the package. And if I can make that work, then I'm going to go full steam forward and see what happens.
Wow. This is something I was not expecting.
It's something I was not expecting either. And the only thing that kind of spurred it, that has made it be something that I've taken semi-seriously, is that Swift UI is at least mature enough that I could roughly prototype what I wanted it to look like with hard-coded data and take that and manipulate it in a couple of ways to display only a subset of the data here and easily navigate to another screen that displayed a full subset of the data and everything else. And so now my stumbling block at the moment is I've got a few JSON files that contain data that I want it to read and populate instead of reading it from hard-coded data in the actual like Swift files themselves. And as long as I can figure out reading and writing to that other data store, then I still have a lot of heavy lifting as far as logic for what I want the app to do. But to me, that's kind of the tipping point. If I can figure that out with relative ease, then it's worth me pursuing. And if I can't, then it's all right. I'll shelve it until it's easier.
Wow, that's cool, man. I was not expecting that.
Well, that's also the reason I didn't add any kind of indicator in the notes. It's always fun to have a surprise.
Oh, I know. I was just like, oh, yeah, we got to get to this. I thought it was... I look forward to hearing more about how this goes, but I was like, oh, that was a nice teaser. A very nice teaser.
And I think the main reason that it kind of clicked is I don't remember where I saw it. I saw something that was like, you can do this with the UI as far as Swift UI is concerned, and it's relatively easy to customize. But it's all, native framework, so you get the advantages of whatever Apple may change. You're not really doing anything overly specific to customize it other than the way you present it within this subset of a view. And you're writing a couple of line function for it, and it looks fine. Like it's not flashy. It's fairly practical. But it had a kind of the look that I had in mind, and it was a very easy way to say, okay, let me take that. Let me see if I can prototype this screen. And then that worked. It's like, okay, well, that worked easier than I thought it would. Let me prototype the full detail screen and not the summary screen. And that worked. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. I still have a lot ahead of me if I really wanted to fledge out a full app. But just the ease of doing that much has eluded me in the past with the old UI table view and collections, and I never learned enough about it to really even be able to speak to it, appropriately. But the old way of doing iOS app development and with Interface Builder and Objective-C just never made enough sense to me for me to try to figure it out. Whereas Swift UI has been easy enough to understand why it's doing things the way it's doing as far as syntax and everything goes, that as long as I can continue without doing any legacy code, I think this will be something that I'll work on for the foreseeable. It'll probably take 6 months-ish at the limited amount of free time that I have to actually flesh out even a beta, or actually probably an alpha.
Yeah. Well, that's cool, man. That's really cool.
But I can also see, just from what I've done so far, I can see a couple of other potential use cases, even if it's just for personal reference, that would be nice to be able to have. So I do think it's something that I'll continue, even if it ends up being a completely unreleased, only available, via test flight to me and maybe a couple of other people who might be interested type thing.
Mm-hmm. That's still really cool. Wow.
And so for 2020, I've managed to find myself in many time-consuming endeavors.
Yeah, they all seem to be good betterment time consuming endeavors, So
Yeah, I think the probably the big thing is whether I can continue them at the same pace, or if something's going to have to give just because of how time consuming everything is. So
yeah. All right. I feel like that's a wrap, and we should have an after show.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I actually don't have anything else on the list for a change unless I missed something.
Yeah. So how do people find us?
I'll drop in the recorded outro here.
Oh, okay. You have a recorded outro. Sweet.
Yeah. Well, the past 2 episodes, we forgot to actually do any kind of read, so it's like, all right, I'll just create a. You can find us here, and drop it in place. It makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
As always, you can reach us on Twitter at untitled_hosts with an S. We also have an Instagram account with the same name at untitled_hosts. You can send us an email at untitled.hosts@gmail.com. And you can visit the feed directly at theuntitledpodcast.com. Have a good night.
Okay, so my first after show topic.
All right.
I went to Ghost Train Brewery on Sunday because they have a really nice outdoor space, and they actually have a stage out at their outdoor space, and it was interesting to see a band come and set up. I feel like they tuned as long as they played, but it was a very eclectic looking band. It's like the guitar, the keyboard player and the drummer, like they both had like long hair, like hair down to the middle of their back, and they look like they came out of a grunge band. And the singer saw him setting up with an acoustic guitar, and he looked like he just came back. He just went from like youth group to the brewery. So it was very like interesting to see like the dichotomy of the band. Anyway, at one point when they were setting up and tuning, the drummer played the intro drum beat to Smells Like Teen Spirit. That's all he played. Nobody else played any other bar of music. That was it. And then my friend Zach and I were just like, oh, you can't do that. You can't tease us like that. That's not cool. And it made me think of a performance by Nirvana in Reading. It was, I think it's one of their like first big recorded concerts. I don't know. There's a lot of clips on YouTube, and when they go to play Smells Like Teen Spirit, they start out and it's like, oh, they're playing Smells Like Teen Spirit, but it sounds more like an interpolation. And it turns out they were actually playing More Than a Feeling by Boston. And then they turned it into Smells Like Teen Spirit, and I thought that was really cool. But that just one drum hit made me think of that.
Interesting.
Yeah, I will put a link into the show notes. So
I don't think I've ever been to Ghost Train, actually.
So they have a really cool setup there. It used to be Cahaba Brewery's location, and then Cahaba Brewery moved to Crestwood. And Ghost Train is on 3rd Avenue South, just, I guess it's like 25th Street, but it's right off of, it's a block away from Highway 31. And they have it's like a building, like a warehouse kind of building. And they have like a big garage door that opens up, so they have like a lot of air can circulate through there. And they're doing pretty good with, they're doing well with social distancing and masks and so forth. And then across from the brewery, they have 2 freight boxes, the big steel freight boxes that you would see on a train. And they have them opened up, and they have them stacked on top of each other, so they have a lower level and an upper level. So you can go out there and you're basically outside, but if it were to rain, you're covered. And they have heaters, so there's no intention of them ever closing those up. So it feels like one of the places where even when it gets cold, it's a relatively low risk environment for going out and having a drink. And their beers are like really good. Like they are of the Birmingham breweries, they have my favorite beers. And I thought that, they have the best space and they have the best beers. And so it's a really good venue. I was there New Year's Eve and it was pretty cold and outside and with their heaters going, it was a nice place. It was a comfortable place to be even outside on a winter's night.
Yeah, I know I've seen their location. I just have never visited. I know we've gone to Avondale a couple of times, and I guess it must be the new Cahaba location that we've been to. That's pretty much it for the local breweries.
Oh, do you ride bicycle? Do you ride a bicycle?
If I had a bicycle, I would consider it, but we're just far enough away from much of anything that I don't bother.
I have a bicycle I bought a bicycle in 2008, and I still have it. And I would rarely ride it. Over the years, I rarely rode it. Actually, I rode it a lot when I first moved to Birmingham because that's how I got to work, if you recall.
I do.
There was one night that Susie was like, "Oh, you should ride your bike in the store," and I'm just like super skeptical of that. I was like, "Is this how she wants to get rid of me? Is this how she's gonna fire me by getting me to do this?" And then, "Oh, you can't do that." But no. Anyway, I rode my bicycle around the Apple store after the store had closed. Anyway, I can actually ride my bike and get behind the Genius Bar without any problems at all.
Is that still the case?
I think. I mean, if they let me ride it in there again, I think I could do I don't think I'd have any problems. But as long as there's nobody back there and nobody opens up the side door. So, anyway, I did probably one of the more fun things I've done in a long time. Year before last, right when it started getting warm, a friend of mine organized a Birmingham bicycle brewery tour. And we started at Trim Tab, and we drank one beer at Trim Tab, and then we went to Avondale, and we drank one beer at Avondale, and then we went to Back 40, and we drank one beer there, and we went to Ghost Train, and we drank one beer there, and one beer at Good People. We closed it up at Good People, and we did not go to Cahaba Brewing. It was a little bit out of the way, but it ended up being like 8 miles of bicycling, and I think it took us like 6 hours, but it was a lot of fun.
So as you were saying, that Good People is the other one that we went to, not Cahaba.
Okay.
I have been to Cahaba once. I don't remember if it was previous location or current location because it wasn't overly memorable to me. Good People was memorable not because of the brewery, but because they had the Little London food truck out there.
Oh.
And then Avondale was memorable because they at least have a handful that I think are decent beers.
See, I feel like Avondale has been my least favorite of the Birmingham breweries. Part of it is because I couldn't find something that I like. Now I think I found something that I like. So... But
Avondale to me tends to be the tamer, kind of more what you would expect flavor profiles depending on the type of beer. So and I say that to mean that they're not overly memorable, but they're not overly repulsive or attempting to be something different. So it's, if you know that you typically like, a dark ale or a stout, you'll probably like their equivalent, that kind of thing. Whereas I will say that I think Trim Tab and Ghost Train are the two that to me are doing something unique enough where I find myself enjoying types of beers from them that I would not enjoy from anybody else for the most part.
Yeah, I used to really love... Trim Tab used to be my favorite, and as of late, they've gotten... Their experimentation has gotten really... Well, I I won't say they've gotten on the deep end because I don't think they have any like crazy beers that nobody likes, but they're just definitely the one that is the most inventive with their flavors and such. But Ghost Train now is like probably my favorite, and for the drinks and for the venue. So, but I can find something to drink at all the breweries.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me is I just have yet to find any domestic beer that I think is worth seeking out. Not that I can't find something that I enjoy, it's just not something that I care to try to find or keep in stock. I've gone back to what I keep on hand being the Einstock Toasted Porter. It's an Icelandic beer. Mm-hmm. And Guinness.
Ah, okay.
Well, and Dragon's Milk. It's a bourbon barrel-aged stout that is fairly high alcohol by volume for beer, and it's pretty good.
So I wouldn't say that I'm a beer connoisseur at all. I know what I like, and what I like isn't like that fancy or that interesting. I'm certainly not like, ooh, I gotta go try the smooth finish of fill-in-the-blank craft beer. I'm perfectly okay drinking a Hoegaarden. I like a good, Belgian wheat beer. That's a flavor profile that is something I'll be pretty okay with from basically anybody. Sometimes I like to get a double IPA, but that's more about I want to get to where I'm going a little more faster than a standard beer would take me. So
half a beer instead of a full beer?
That's right. So, no, really like 2 pints, and I'm like, hey, what's happening? So,
yeah, I guess I shouldn't say that I haven't found any domestics that I won't seek out, because that's not entirely accurate. Sam Adams typically has a couple that I do. When I see them, I grab them because I find them enjoyable. And I can always count on Blue Moon being a consistent drink just to enjoy. But it's not that they're memorable. It's more that that's just a nice, comfortable drink.
Yes. Yeah. So, I knew I had one. Oh, the Hubble that I sent you a link to. Would you? You sent me some brief thoughts, but if you were going to use your iPad as a general compute device, do you think that would be something you're like a solid case port expander that would be valuable on the market? What do you?
It's something that would intrigue me if I was using the iPad and had the keyboard stand so that I could dock it and have a good physical experience with a keyboard. Or I guess if you had a decent mount where you could plug in a USB keyboard, since it had a USB A connector on that dock, that would be a viable option as well, I suppose. My biggest thing is that it's difficult for me to picture the iPad using it in a way that I would use a computer, because it just doesn't fit what I do with a computer versus what I do with the iPad. And so it's tough to get past that just kind of block. I do think it is intriguing. I just know that with my use cases across the board, I would plug it in or put it in this case, whatever the specific methodology would be, and then I would never use any of the ports. But it's because I wouldn't be doing any of the tasks where I would need those ports on the iPad, because I'd be doing them on my MacBook Pro.
Yeah.
And so it is intriguing. I'm not going to say that it's not an interesting concept, and I could see that being potentially a future way of kind of bridging the gap between portable computer devices and not doing some of the more intricate stuff that I would do with a full-fledged computer. I think the biggest thing is most of the time I'm not plugging in devices even to my MacBook Pro. I'm plugging in power, and that's about it unless I have a very specific use case. And 90% of the time when I'm having to plug in something, it's the Ethernet adapter or being able to connect to a console port on a piece of hardware. And that's not something I'm going to be doing with the iPad.
Right. I thought it was interesting because my first thought when I saw it was that it reminds me of the mod book. Do you recall the mod book?
I do. I definitely saw the resemblance.
Yeah. And so mod book is actually still around. Not that they've ever shipped their devices to anybody. I think there's just a few that have actually been shipped, even though many more people have paid for them. They're an interesting company. But that was my first thought, and I was like, oh. And the second thought I had was it was kind of a thought of jealousy, and it was like, this thing has more ports than my MacBook Pro. It's like I would love to have an SD card reader and an HDMI port on my MacBook Pro, but I don't.
And those use cases are certainly important because I at least now have a camera that uses an SD card. But for the longest time, because I'm a Canon user, compact flash is where I lived anyway. And so I've always had to grab an adapter to be able to pull photos off the camera. So yeah, it would be nice to be able to use the native SD slot that you used to be able to get, but I never had that experience anyway.
Oh. So the time that you used an SD card in your camera did not overlap with having an SD card on your MacBook Pro?
Nope, it did not. I didn't get the R until after I had purchased the newer MacBook Pro.
Oh. That's it's I don't want to say tragic, but it's just like I'm a little bit saddened by that.
I mean, I certainly used the SD card as a just storage device to put Linux on, to put in like a Raspberry Pi or play with different things, but it was not a regular use case. Something that might have done a couple of times a year at most. So it just never felt like I was losing something that I really had, and loved and used all the time. Like the fact that I have one single adapter that I can plug in via USB-C and gives me all of the ports that I have used different adapters for over the years, like I'm okay with that trade-off. I still only have to carry one dongle. So
I was going to say, that's kind of like, it puts you in a better situation, which is not anything I've ever heard anyone ever talk about when talking about the port situation on the current MacBook Pros.
Yeah, I was one of those that was kind of against I was fairly vocally against removing some of the ports that I used. But then I realized, honestly, I just don't use them often enough for it to be an issue, or when I was using them, I was plugging in some sort of adapter or cable anyway. Like there's no difference to using this different adapter that goes to USB-C than this other adapter that I was using that goes to USB-A. Like it's kind of a moot point. I was one of those who was annoyed for no reason other than I had to replace my adapters.
Well, I mean, the adapters can be expensive, especially if you buy the Apple adapters. I was really disappointed because I actually used the SD card slot. I got an SD card adapter from Anker. It works out really well. It has the most satisfying USB-C click of anything I've ever put into USB-C.
Is it the little kind of square one that has both SD and micro SD?
Yes.
Yeah, we've got one of those. Emily uses that.
Yeah. So that kind of is like, it's such a small adapter, and Anker is a brand that I've come to really like, and I find that their products are very solid. It's not too big of a deal, and I don't use my SD card slot that much, but I do use it enough that I definitely wanted an adapter, and I do miss being able to put it in. But the other one that I really I'm missing is the HDMI port. I really liked having the HDMI port, and I basically use it once a year. Back when we could travel, whenever I would go on vacation with my family, I would load up my computer with tons of videos because I could never trust the Wi-Fi streaming inside of the condos or whatever. And so I would have like a bunch of videos on my MacBook Pro, and I would connect it to the HDMI on the back of a TV and play movies for my kids, and sometimes watch movies in the evening with my parents or something like that, and my sister. And so now it's like, ooh, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do, because we didn't go anywhere this year, and this would have been the first year that I don't have an HDMI cable or an HDMI port. So if travel can happen next year, I haven't figured out what I'm gonna do for that.
Well, you do have that little Anker dongle that has an HDMI port on it.
Oh, that's right. I do have that, and that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna use that HDMI port. Totally, because we're not in the office anymore, I've totally forgotten about that adapter.
Yeah, I used to load up movies on either the iPad or the MacBook, and I would take it with me. But it got to where every time we would travel, I would never plug it up and use it. We would either, and part of this is we just don't watch a lot of TV in general. Not that it's something that we, feel strongly one way or another about. It's just when we go on vacation, we tend to just not get out anything other than the phone, and so downtime tends to be catching up on, reading a book or doing something different. And so it got to where I would still take the laptop because I'm importing photos for the camera and everything, but we just weren't using any of the multimedia capabilities. And so it just got to where I didn't care anymore, because even if I did have them, I wasn't using the ports for that.
Interesting. It was something where my kids have never really watched TV with ads, and I liked having control over that aspect of what they were watching. So it was a pretty good, straightforward thing for me to do. So
I was just thinking about it. The one of the last couple of trips that we took last year, there wasn't even a TV in the place that we stayed at.
Nice.
Yeah, we this was when we went up to North Georgia, outside of Tennessee, and went to Lookout Mountain and just enjoyed that area. But we stayed in a custom-built, I'm going to call it a cottage. It was, if you know anything about pond building and the kind of cement mixture that they use to create the shell, it was basically a cabin/cottage built out of that. So I met it was an Airbnb find, and the guy that built them, came out and we talked for a bit. And he said, honestly, I've been a pond builder for, a couple of decades, and I'm also a kid at heart, and I wanted to just build fun stuff. And so he built 2 little cottages on his land that are different sizes. One has 2 bedrooms, one has 1. They're not too far apart from each other. And he was clearing a space and building a third that was designed to be kind of a recreational facility or an aggregation facility. So if you rented one of the cottages or both of them, if you had a large party, you had this other facility close by that was built in a similar fashion that was going to have a little pool and everything. Just really neat in general. And but what was appealing is that from the outside it looked like just a stone cottage, and the inside walls were still rough, that same kind of material, so that it felt like you were just spending some time and something hewn out of stone, and it was great. There was no TV. We had a hot tub and some ceiling fans and a little mini kitchen, and then the 2 bedrooms, and that was pretty much it. And it was one of the best weekend trips that we've made in a long time, because we were able to legitimately just unwind and relax.
That's cool. I love a good hot tub.
Oh, especially, I don't remember exactly what time of year we went, but it was as autumn was settling in, so you had cooler nights, even though it was warm during the day. And it was absolutely perfect weather for it.
Oh, I can't think of a time that is not summer that's not perfect weather for a hot tub. One of my favorite things is like if it's snowy outside and you get into a hot tub.
Yeah, and that was the trip that we were thinking about potentially doing this year that we didn't look any further once everything got, well, just this. And
yeah.
but we had thought about this year going up into the mountains and renting a cabin and just spending the time in the cabin. Like whatever time we went away elsewhere would just be to grab food or whatever else we might need, and just make sure that whatever cabin we decided to rent had more than enough space to let Jacob run around and do whatever he wants and be entertained, and not feel like he's bored or have to take a bunch of stuff to keep him occupied, but then have a sizable enough footprint that we could just kind of relax and enjoy an outside deck and hot tub. And then, of course, that all got pushed to hopefully next year.
Yeah. I went to a cabin in January of 2019 with some friends, or I was invited by some friends and to a larger group. I think there were like 30 people at this cabin. The cabin was capable of handling probably like 40 people. It's 3 levels, and there were 2 hot tubs outside. It's like dueling hot tubs, and that was lovely. I love going to a hot tub, and so yeah. Surprisingly, even though we live in the South, I've gotten to experience like getting into a hot tub with snow on the ground, snowing around, and that's been really cool. It's one of my favorite things.
Yeah, I was trying to think. I don't think I've ever actually gotten into one where there was actual snow on the ground, but I have gotten into one where temperatures would be conducive for snow. Yeah. I know it's not the same thing, though. Like that has been on the list of, I really wish it would just be a foot or 2 of snow, and I could make my way through it quickly and get into the hot tub and enjoy it.
Oh, yeah. This is definitely not a foot or 2 of snow. This was in the Smokies, so it was like an inch. So, but it was fun. I've had like on my bucket list to go like somewhere where, like you've said, like lots of snow, and then go to the hot tub. But then I found, hot springs, and there's a hot spring in Utah that I'd love to go visit. And I've seen pictures. I want to say it's Diamond Forks Hot Spring in Utah. And there are pictures and videos of people going to this hot spring and getting in the middle of winter, and there's just like tons of snow all around them. And it will be snowing, and I thought that was really cool.
I was just thinking about hot springs before you segued into it, because that's also been on my list of...
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Sadly, there are no proper hot springs in the Southeast anywhere that I've heard of.
Aren't there a couple in Arkansas?
There's a hot springs Arkansas, and there are hot springs there. I don't know much about the ones in Arkansas, but I was considering going to Hot Springs, North Carolina, as a terminus of a hiking trip, because one of my favorite things to do after hiking is get into a hot tub. And I thought, it'll be even better if you just get into a hot spring. But in Hot Springs, North Carolina, all of the hot springs are sort of tapped into, and you have to like stay at one of the places that has access to the hot springs. And you're not actually getting into the hot spring itself. You're getting into basically a hot tub that's filled with water from the hot spring. So it's not, in my opinion, not a legitimate hot spring experience. It's more of a hot tub experience.
Well, it's a more of a traditional bathhouse experience.
Yeah.
So when we went to St. Lucia, I don't remember the name of the area there, but there was a similar thing where there was a hot spring nearby, but when you if you wanted to go soak, you would go into this little bathhouse, and then the water would flow from the springs into, or through a spigot into that bathhouse. And so you would fill your, for lack of better phrasing, bathtub, even though it wasn't specifically a bathtub, maybe micro pool.
Yeah.
But you would fill it, and then you would get in and soak, and then when you were done, you would drain it and leave. And I mean, it was enjoyable enough, but it definitely changes the experience. It's no longer anything like it's nothing like the experience you and I are talking about, even though it can be an enjoyable experience in its own right.
I had a slightly different experience with the hot tubs or the hot springs in St. Lucia. The place I went to these were some outdoor places, and they were cement micro pools. Definitely bigger than a tub, but they were cement, and the hot water was flowing to them from the spring, and it just flowed. Basically, I guess there's a portion of the hot springs where it's flowing outside, and they would just let it. They built these pools so that it could flow through the pools, fill up the pools, and continue to flow on its natural course. And I feel like the biggest mistake I made with that was doing a hike of the Gros Bouton the day after the hot tubs. I feel like I should have done the hike first and then the hot tubs second, so that could get a good relaxation from the hot tubs after that hike.
Yeah, we at least did do that order, but the drawback to that was we also spent a decent amount of time in the place where we stayed had little private pools per bungalow or cottage, and so we spent a decent amount of time the day before going to the springs, just relaxing at the cottage for that particular day and enjoying the pool. And so I was somewhat sunburnt, and then going to enjoy the hot springs was not quite as enjoyable as a result.
No. A sunburn and hot water are just not good.
Yeah, I mean, at least it wasn't a bad sunburn, but it was enough that I felt it if I actually submerged myself into the water. And so I think it was probably about waist deep or so that I was able to get in without any issue, and anything higher than that, and I started to feel it. Yeah.
Did you also, I'm guessing you probably wouldn't have partaken in it, but was there also the opportunity to rub mud on yourself at the hot tub?
I think there was. It sounds familiar. I don't remember if it was actually at the location we went or if we just read about that particular location as an option. But I do remember at least seeing the info about it, and I just don't remember if it was firsthand at the location we went to or if it was secondhand reading about the local attractions and all.
Yeah. Beck and I did the one where you put mud all over yourself, and that was a lot of fun. I'd never done that before. I, of course, wanted to make myself, make war paint out of it. So I did. So because there were two different colors of mud,
brown and white.
No, it was light gray and dark gray. So
I guess actually that makes a lot more sense given the volcanic history of the island.
Yeah. I got no more after show topics, just the mud.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot, both actually legitimately covering what we had outlined and having a decent conversation afterwards.
Yeah. All right. I hope you have a good evening.
You too.
And I hope I have my iPhone 12 Pro before the next time we talk.
I do too. I want to hear the comparison of your thoughts and whether I feel crazy for feeling like I keep noticing display differences that I can't put my finger on.
No, I don't think you did. I don't think you are. I vaguely remember some explanation about how the displays are a bit different than the previous model. So once I get mine, we'll talk about it.
Sounds good.
All right. You have a good evening.
You as well.